Hello again, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of Principles of Marketing Business 330. I enjoyed reading all the things that you wrote in week 1 assignments. Some of you made some really good posts. You showed some original thought. You demonstrated that you learned the concepts in the textbook, and I really appreciated that and tried to let those of you who had good posts know that you did a really good job, and looking forward to reading more of the same. The really good posts were the ones who went beyond just simply recounting a story of your experience as a consumer in a particular product category. Now, telling about your experience as a consumer is not a bad thing all by itself, but you have to make sure that it's relevant to the concepts that are being talked about in that particular assignment. Relevant more so than just simply being in the same product category, but it's relevant to the managerial and, more importantly, the marketing concepts that are talked about in the assignments. Looking forward to more people demonstrating their knowledge of the things in the textbook. Also was happy that everybody did a good job in the introductions. I certainly didn't deduct any points on the introductions, even if you didn't go ahead to acknowledge other classmates. I gave everybody a point for the introductions, and looking forward to people getting most of the points on the assignments as well. Coming up for week 2 quiz. Again, it's a pretty straightforward quiz. There's no tricky things, no particular terms that have to be pointed out for you. Again, just like week 1, everything in the quizzes are in the textbook. So open your textbook while you're taking the quiz, and I don't expect you'll have any problem at all. It'll be a good time to spend plenty of time with the textbook as you're taking the quiz. Now, on the assignments coming up, there are a number of things that I pointed out in the instructor guidance that you ought to take in mind as you're responding to the assignments coming up, both the written assignments and a paper coming up about why people go to Las Vegas, a chance for you all to be psychologists that way. Looking forward to reading those papers as well. Something early on in this week's reading, the consumer behavior chapter of this week's reading, talked about how marketers can sometimes know things even that the consumers themselves don't know. They can know things about what a consumer is thinking, why they buy what they buy. Even when the consumer is unaware, that's the reason they buy. It's a pretty nifty trick that some marketers can do. And as I was reading that section of the textbook, I thought of a very good example of that same sort of thing happening from early on in my market research career. I had a client, a very large yogurt manufacturer, the multi-billion-dollar brand, and they wanted to change the packaging of all their yogurt containers. Now, on first glance, you may think, well, packaging change, that's no big deal, because after you consume the product, the packaging becomes garbage. However, changing the package on a multi-billion-dollar consumer packaged good brand is a big decision. There's a ton of thought and effort that goes into what you see every time you walk down the aisle of a grocery store, because there's a lot of money at stake for these big brands. This yogurt manufacturer was starting to grow tired of the look of their old packaging, the graphics, the taste appeal, a lot of other things, and they wanted to switch over to a new one. But a switch like that to a multi-billion-dollar brand could turn out to be a big disaster, costing a lot of money if you don't do it right. So that the research plan that came up with, that shows how marketers can sometimes know things that the consumers themselves don't know. The consumers were asked to try a sample of the product. They tasted one sample of yogurt in one container. Right next to it was another container. Tasted that. The respondents swore up and down that one was better than the other. One was creamier. It was tastier. It had more of a fruity flavor. The texture was better. Whatever their dimensions or attributes were that they measured one being better than the other, they were certain one was better than the other. Here's the trick. The yogurt in each container was exactly the same. Exactly the same brand, exactly the same flavor, exactly the same everything from the same production run at the manufacturing facility. And yet consumers thought they were so different. How could that be? Well, remember the study is about packaging. Behind each container of yogurt was a package. Behind one was the old packaging. Behind the other was the potential new package. This was a great example of indirect research methodology where you don't ask folks, tell me what you think about the packaging. After all, they'd say, well, I don't care about the packaging, I care about the product. Instead, you say, try the product. But they'll tell you all kinds of things that they are certain one product is better than the other. Well, what they're really telling you is they took a look at that package and they liked one package better than the other. Either the graphics were better, the taste appeal was better, or something was better. That's a really clever example of indirect testing methodologies that market research can use. So the marketer actually is armed with knowledge that the consumer themselves don't know about their own purchase behavior. That was a pretty clever example from early on in my market research career. Um, to sum up, the assignments this week, make sure you read everything in the instructor guidance. I've listed in an itemized way things that ought to be included in each post. Also giving you some heads up on things that ought to be included in the paper. Feel free to contact me before you submit the paper or even the post if you're wondering if you've hit the mark on the head in terms of what that post is supposed to talk about. But so many of you had such great contributions last week. I'm expecting more of the same. I appreciate all of your effort. And as always, contact me through email or through the Ask Your Instructor. Those of you who emailed me about textbooks that came late, my apologies for not getting back to you sooner. There aren't going to be any deductions on lateness because of late arriving textbooks. Look forward to not having to enforce the lateness policy at all. Thanks everybody again, and I'll look forward to seeing you online.